Good morning. So how many of you believe in reincarnation? 100%. I was thinking back, oh goodness, many full moons ago, when I read a book about reincarnation, and it seemed so normal, so natural. And yet when I brought it up, with my friends and my family, it was not so natural. So I've given it a lot of thought. Kind of forgot about it for a while, and then had an experience with a member of my family that died. He was young. He was like 21, 22 years old. And I began to experience evidence that he was still around. And that led me to think about reincarnation again. This is just simple thinking, not scientific, just kind of emotional thinking. And so the process of that early thinking was, well, gosh, if I see evidence of him still here in spirit, his body's not here, but his spirit is here, why is he hanging around? What does this mean? And that's when I finally accepted for sure. It was no longer for me theoretical or hypothetical or someone else's experience. I just knew for sure, we have repetitive incarnations. And that once the physical body dies, the soul doesn't. The spirit continues. So these, these were ideas that were really important for me at the time. And then I began reading about people who had actual recollections of previous lifetimes. And oh, wow, see, this is natural. It may be unnatural to some, but certainly is a natural idea for me. And then I had my own personal recollections, just two. And I decided that's all I wanted. 2 recollections is enough. I won't go into them, but one was, how can I explain it? It's like when you're given the insight and the recognition of an earlier lifetime, a previous lifetime, it's significant to your present life. For whatever reason, it is significant to this present life. So I had to delve into, questioning, why am I being given this? Why is it important? So on and so forth. So I finally figured it all out. Then I began into Agni Yoga and saw the many, many incarnations, learned about the many, many incarnations of Nicholas and Helena Rourke. And in that study, I discovered that Helena Rourke had many incarnations with Master Moria. See, so this idea was becoming more and more comfortable, more and more natural to me, to now where I'm on the complete opposite end of the spectrum of most Western thinkers. And I think those of us that are in the teaching fall in that spectrum as well, that we're completely more Eastern in our understanding of life and reincarnation than the Western Hemisphere. So the Western Hemisphere has to get caught up. And maybe that's why we are living in the Western Hemisphere, is to introduce the idea of reincarnation. I know that there was programs on television that had various children talking about their recollection of their last life. Some of it, I listened to it and I finally got a bit bored because some of it was real, some of it was not. Some was just fabrication. But the recollections of some of the children, it was very sad. You know, they died of very terrible, terrible situations, and I didn't want to listen to that anymore. And I felt sorry for them that they had a recollection. Typically, when little ones, young ones, have recollections of difficult immediate last lifetime, they've come back too soon. Oftentimes, they've come back within a day or two, back into the mom's womb. So they didn't have enough rest time. You know, they weren't in bardo, as we call it, long enough. But the teaching also tells us not to dwell on our previous lifetimes. And the reason being is that most people fabricate. They fantasize. You know, all the Cleopatras and Caesars and who?
Joan of Arc.
And Joan of Arc. Oh gosh, yes, I've met some. Yeah, so it's kind of an escape from this life. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about reincarnation today, and to help us consider our spirit is immortal. And that takes me back to that initial experience I had with our young family member. He died when he was 22. Died trying to save another person from having a difficult situation, and so he went back to do the deed to help this person, and as he was going back home, he was crossing the intersection, and a drunk driver ran into him and killed him. And so in my mind, he was a hero. You know, he did something for someone else. And but that was the moment and the experiences that I had for another, maybe 5 or 6 weeks after his death, is what made me begin to truly understand and believe in my heart about the continuity of life. So we can take comfort in the recognition that not only is our human soul immortal, that it also cyclically incarnates. We learn that as our soul evolves, and when I learned this, I became very, very excited about it, that as we evolve, as our consciousness grows, as our consciousness expands, as we make each life increasingly purposeful, our soul becomes more selective about whom and where it incarnates. So before this point, our incarnations were random and not so specific. Typically, at that point, our soul is pulled back into incarnation because of the pull of karma. Karma meaning paying our debts off. But there's a moment in time when our soul reaches a certain level of enlightenment, a certain level of illumination as a result of the striving it engaged in each lifetime. It reaches a point, a culminative point, where from that point forward, now each incarnation is purposeful. It's no longer random. There's no longer any volunteer incarnations, reincarnations. Every incarnation from that point forward is very purposeful. So that soul comes into incarnation with a strong sense of self, a strong sense of direction. And a strong sense of responsibility from early childhood. And you'll hear parents say, my child seems like an old soul. Chances are they are. The majority of those who live in the West believe that reincarnation is a fabrication or a fad, or it's just an entertainment to think about. Many feel the same way about yoga. I recall when my sister-in-law announced to her husband back in the 1960s that she was going to take a yoga class, he rolled his eyes to the back of his head and said, "Oh, you don't believe in that stuff, do you?" Today's society more commonly accepts the practice of yoga than it did way back then. It is presently met with much less ridicule and even prescribed by some medical doctors as an exercise to reduce stress. Of course, those who are more educated in the study of yoga recognize and know that Hatha Yoga is a yoga that was designed for humanity many thousands of years ago. Yoga evolves as humanity evolves, and I know you know this because I've been talking about it for a couple of Sundays, but it bears repetition. So yoga evolves as humanity evolves. Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is the yoga of today. I found that interesting because you don't hear much about Raja Yoga, not even in the esoteric community. But this is what the teaching tells us, is that Raja Yoga is the yoga of today because it is a mental yoga. And Agni Yoga is a yoga for the future. So this is why we don't have masses of people congregating at the local Agni Yoga, studio. It is the yoga of synthesis, but we've learned to call it the Agni Yoga as the teaching of living ethics, because this is something that's real and practical and a practice that we all need to observe and begin to incorporate more and more into our life, and that is to live an ethical life. Now, Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga was a yoga to anchor the etheric body to the physical body. So if this was a yoga that was a yoga of many thousands of years ago, surely just logic tells you that there has to be another yoga, as humanity evolves, that follows Hatha Yoga. But that's why this country is the West is so slow. They think, wow, look at, now that I believe in Hatha Yoga, it's like, oh my God, catch up. But so there was another yoga after Hatha Yoga, which is called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga corresponds to the emotional body. As you begin to practice Bhakti Yogi, I can't talk this morning, so don't listen. I'm so enjoying this cool air. I'm thriving in it. It's beautiful. So the next major yoga was Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of the emotional body, inspiring our emotions with the virtue of devotion. Raja Yoga followed Bhakti Yoga, and it means to develop and refine our mental body. So those are the three major yogas, and now we have Agni Yoga. Meanwhile, reincarnation is even more difficult to accept because the majority of Western religions teach that it is unreal. And God help us to think outside of the box. See, even when you have that initial experience of a recollection of a previous lifetime, you set it aside as fabrication because the church does not teach reincarnation. Not today's church. However, prior to the 4th century, this is so curious. Prior to the 4th century, reincarnation was naturally accepted. The early references to reincarnation in the New Testament, we are told, was deleted by the 4th century Emperor Constantine. And I know some of you know this, but not everybody. Emperor Constantine, when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. In the 6th century, in the year 553 AD, the Second Council of Constantinople officially declared reincarnation a heresy, and the doctrine of reincarnation was officially banished by the Christian church. Now that's scientific fact. That is fact. It was banished for no other reason than it was considered to be too much of an influence from the East. Isn't that interesting? During the same early Christian era leading up to the Council of Constantinople, noble church fathers like Origen and Saint Sergius accepted and believed in the reincarnation principle. So did the Gnostics and the Christian Cathars of Italy and southern France, where they were severely brutalized for their belief in reincarnation as late as the 12th century. Aside from the history, the surprising point is that there is actually a considerable amount of evidence for reincarnation, even in the New Testament, that unequivocally implies reincarnation. So here's one example from John chapter 9, verse 1. And this is what it says. And as he was passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who has sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? Jesus answered, neither has this man sinned, nor his parents, but the works of God were to be made manifest in him. So look it up. It's in John chapter 9, verse 1. However, reincarnation is not a doctrine. It is not dogma. It's not even a religious belief. We're discussing a law of the universe, which can be expressed through any religion, philosophy, or psychology. When you have this experience of recollection, pure, true, factual, mine was, and you know how I went on the internet to check it out and learned a little bit more than what I really wanted to know. But so it's not fabrication, it's not fantasy. And it was not a religious experience. I certainly didn't go to my priest to have it confirmed. See, I just knew it. I could call it a spiritual experience, an illuminating experience, and one that was certainly significant to this life, but it had nothing to do with doctrine and dogma and religion. So what is the immortal spirit? The teaching explains that we are a spark of God, a ray of God, that we are all little cells in the body of the universe, little members of the universe. As luck was have it this morning, and I'm driving over here and listening to TED Talks, and they were talking about the universe, and that the universe is like 13.600 billion years old. And then we read in the teachings that say we are little members of the universe. We're really quite old. And we thought we were old at our age. It's so exciting, but start looking for signs. Don't fantasize. Look for real signs about the immortality of spirit and the continuity of life. And this was certainly one. This morning, TED Talks, and then coming in and me saying we are all little cells in the body of the universe, little members of the universe, and that the universal intelligence, that great, great being, sent us to refine the planet and to shape it and to shape its culture. Remember last Sunday we talked about culture? According to the universal law of reincarnation, we are sent to this and even to other planets with a great responsibility and sense of duty. There is a book that White Mountain published called At the Threshold of the New World. In that book, Helena Rourke talks about her experiences of going to Venus and what was there on Venus. I'm not going to tell you because you have to go get the book and read it. I remember 50 years ago reading a book by a woman who gave specific and detailed experiences being taken with her in her guide to other planets. I was just riveted. It finally got bored because it was almost too scientific, but these are another signs, evidence that people have been taken to other planets for specific reasons. And then some of us go to another planet and say, no, go back. That's also a very valid experience. And I'd always wondered why was I sent back, because it was not my responsibility to be there. It was not my duty to be there. It took me forever to figure out why was I rejected. Now I know. Life after life, a person returns to create a better body, one that will eventually reach such a degree of refinement that it will become transfigured. Eventually, our light will shine to such a degree that people will be able to see that we are transfigured. There's something different about us, about you. So what does it mean to be transfigured? Transfiguration is a total purification and alignment of our mental, emotional, etheric, and physical bodies. It is total purification and alignment. It's like taking 3 circles and overlaying one circle upon the other, each circle representing one of our bodies, and they are equal in size and density. That alignment is the result of being aligned to the light and love and power of our innermost core through the help of the solar angel. So that means there's no longer a distortion in the physical body, no longer a distortion in the emotional body that creates a friction with the physical body, that there's no longer a distortion in the mental body that creates a friction with the emotional or physical body. All 3 are now perfectly in alignment. So when there is let's say a critical event that takes place in your life, it is registered totally and completely and equally in all 3 of those bodies. When we become transfigured, it is a moment of supreme enlightenment. As we prepare for and participate in each full moon meditation, and especially experience the 3 major full moon festivals of Aries and Taurus and Gemini, we are given plenty of opportunity to strive toward that moment of supreme enlightenment. Now, for most of us, we engage in spiritual disciplines that take us up to those 3 major full moons. The key discipline is meditation. Then we begin to discover, call out, CULL, study, research about our primary ray. Once we learn our primary ray, the primary expression of our personality life, then we begin to recognize what are the vices that are related to that ray, and we begin to transform those vices through the virtues that are associated with that primary ray. So now we have meditation as a discipline alongside the practice of virtues that transform the vices. And the next step is, in the teachings, we are told that each ray has virtues to be acquired. Now, what is so exciting is that once you learn that primary ray, once you have integrated and transformed your vices into virtues, the next step is you begin to develop the virtues to be acquired. And those virtues to be acquired represent your soul ray. Now your consciousness is expanding and illuminating to the point where the actual ray of your soul is coming into manifestation. So by the time we get to it's a whole, year after year after year process of these disciplines, but the full moons of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini give us a jump start into the next spiritual year. So the accumulation of the result of our meditations, our striving to change the virtues into vices, and eventually moving into the virtues to be acquired, puts us on the fast track of evolution. So we finally reached that point where I talked about initially, is now from this point forward, each incarnation is purposeful. It's no longer random. We're no longer just thrown out into the universe and into a country that we are not necessarily there to serve and so forth. But you see how this process works. As we strive and practice spiritual disciplines, as we build the Antakarana bridge, our bridge that creates continuity of consciousness, we become increasingly receptive to the hierarchy of light. Then we know we are preparing ourselves for this moment of transfiguration. Now, on the interesting, simple side is transfiguration, in a sense, is related to the destruction of our habits. Some of these habits have served us well over our various years of living, but we reach a point where we have to let these habits go in order to bring in new energy, new life, new rhythm. It means that the whole personality must pass away and something new must be born. So we have been sent to this planet to refine ourselves and life itself. Eventually, we dedicate a refined body and elements in nature. For example, let's say that we own this beautiful car, maybe a Lexus, maybe a Rolls Royce, maybe a Cadillac. I don't know all these cars, except they cost a lot of money. So let's say that we own one of these really beautiful, expensive cars, and we keep this car in the very best condition. It's like, now we're talking about our physical body, right? That this is our Rolls Royce, this is our, tell me, what's the name of a really hot car?
Maserati.
A Maserati, okay. Let's say that we have a Maserati, we've really taken good care of it. And when we depart, we leave our Maserati to our friends. Okay, in a weird way, what's happening here is that we're going to use if we've created an astral body and a mental body, the same way that we took care of our Maserati. Is that the right Maserati? Is that the name of the car? Maserati. When we leave this physical body, we're going to jump into the astral body, into the mental body that has been equally as well cared for. And that's why we want to work on it. This is hinted at in the biblical story of Elijah. When Elijah departed, a carriage arrived in which he jumped and flew into the sky. His disciples were waiting, and he took his mantle and threw it to them. When they dressed in his mantle, they obtained the same spiritual powers that Elijah had. This mantle was one of his bodies, perhaps his intuitional or mental body. So it's not only us moving into the astral, the mental, and maybe the Buddhic body, but we're giving that Maserati to someone that's still here on the planet that can, it's like put on your astral and mental and Buddhic body and serve the way you were serving. How does this work? The 12 disciples of Christ. When in today's society, when a great spiritual teacher dies, he or she gives that mantle to the next in line. That's what receiving a mantle means. So, it would be an interesting seminar to discuss something like that event. But it gives us food for thought. The point is, we must proceed toward perfection, toward improvement and completion, life after life, because we cannot yet resurrect ourselves unless we are given a mantle. And we have to be deserving of that mantle. See? We are instructed to be perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. But who is perfect? In the teachings of living ethics, it is called striving toward self-perfectment. This means that we cannot accomplish this goal in one life, right? It's like when my dear 22-year-old cousin-in-law died. No, this is not right. He was a beautiful, beautiful young man, good looking too, blonde. How could God take a 22-year-old life and say, that's it? See, it's not reasonable, right? It's not reasonable. And thus, reincarnation. We can, however, improve in each life, getting closer and closer so that one day we will be successful. As we strive and refine ourselves, our physical, emotional, mental bodies, As we build our intuitional body, the body of Buddha, as it is called, the Buddhic body, we are refining ourselves and the body of the planet. At the same time, if you hurt someone, even in a subtle way, you are also hurting your own emotional and mental bodies. When you hurt yourself and others, you are not working for refinement. You are not working for perfection. You are instead working for degeneration. So we must improve ourselves, not only physically, but also control our emotions so that they do not create friction in our bodies. If our emotions and physical body are good, but our mind is twisted, it's not going to work. We will always have mental friction, and then, as a result, we'll be unhealthy. Many people have mean minds. Mean minds are minds filled with negative thoughts about others, negative thoughts about themselves, thoughts which eventually manifest themselves in degenerative ways, hurtful ways. So observe your thoughts. Observe if you have a mean mind. Are you mostly pure in your thoughts of others, in your thoughts about yourself, your life, your loved ones, your friends? Or are you mean in your thoughts? I think we're going to find that we are both. Sometimes we are beautiful in our thoughts of others and are able to build right human relations with those thoughts, but at other times we're mean. When we are mean in our thoughts, we are on our way to destroy what we were building. So when the teacher gives his or her mantle to another, it contains clairvoyance, clairaudience, sensitivity, impression, and so forth. It is a complicated and intricate mechanism that the teacher has constructed. How are we constructing our astral body, our mental bodies? We have come here to refine. As we do for the earth, we do for ourselves. As we perfect life, we perfect ourselves. Whatever we do for other people, it is done for us. People often think differently. But when you do only for yourself and not others, then you have no balance. And this is how people live. Big house, 2 or 3 cars, certain lifestyles, and so on. Even when they have it, they don't enjoy it. They become so used to it. You know, it's lost. They've lost their gratitude for what they have. We must make other people prosperous, happy, and healthy if we want to be healthy ourselves. Reincarnation has one aim, which is to perfect. Incarnation is not a myth, it is a law. Everybody incarnates. Look at the trees. They die in winter and are reborn in the spring. Planets and solar systems disappear and then come into being again. When a person is dying, in our tradition, we administer Holy Communion and try to stay with them in their last moments, to try to establish and maintain continuity of consciousness. Some people, when they are dying, identify with their bodies, and when it is failing, they say, "This is it, it's over. Life is finished for them." And so they die hypnotizing themselves. What does hypnotizing mean? It means they're blocking their soul. Some people panic and think that they are going to hell forever and burn. They do not want to die, and they struggle. They are afraid. But we believe in immortality. When you are dying, remember this, when you are dying, say, Lord, please take care of me. I am with you. Lord, please take care of me. I am with you. When you are dying, remember there is no death for you. By putting this thought in your mind, you will be able to see what is happening to your body. But you will not be in your body. You will already be 5 or 6 miles away. You will see the body because your soul has jumped away from the body. This is what happened to my mother on the day of her death. It has happened to others that I know. With Mom, it began 3 days before her departing. She called on the phone, and we began the last day's conversation. It's so real. See, this is not religion. This is life. So when you are dying, keep in mind that you are the immortal spirit, that God is within you, that you were not created to die, that you are a spark, and that spark is part of God. As you refine your bodies, as you engage in certain disciplines to build continuity of consciousness, your inner teacher will give you exercises so that you know that when your physical body dies, you do not. You must prepare yourself for these inner disciplines.